Hi, Julie Jones from SSB Performance, Smarter, Stronger, Better Mindset Training. Here with this week's Mindset Made Simple Tip of the Week, brought to you by Game Day Sportswear. This week we're talking about mind over matter and why it matters to our performance. So I've been spending some time out of my dad's house, and in the basement there's this tool room. And every time I go into the tool room, it reminds me of my grandpa, who we called Papa. Because I did a lot of little things in there with my papa. We made cool wooden things, and I looked at all the stuff in, its organization. It's not quite as organized anymore. But this tool room has been there for 90 years probably, because the house that my dad lives in, his great-grandfather and his dad, or my great-grandfather and my grandpa built. So the memories just keep flooding in every time I walk into that room. And what it makes me really think of is my papa and how he managed his life. He was handicapped. He was disabled. One leg was shorter than the other. I never really realized it because he was anything short of disabled. But according to everyone else's account, he was a disabled guy. He was in immense pain for a lot of his life. And then he went on dialysis and was in even more pain as he went through that for 6 years. The last 6 years of his life. But as he aged and things became harder, he never failed to get up emotionally and physically for exciting things. A family get together, or when my sister would come home from college, or when I was going to visit. And you've seen this before. You've been there before. You've seen your grandparents rise to occasion out of the depths of some horrible sickness or pain when you show up and they're like, oh my gosh, we're so excited to see you. Or you've had a great conversation with someone. You're so immersed and entrenched in this conversation that you forget that prior to going into it, you had this splitting headache or this horrible stomach ache. Well, as I was thinking about my papa and how he was so amazing, and what a blessing it was to watch him in action, forever grateful for that, I started to really think about there's something there, right? It seems like magic, but it's not magic, it's science. We can rise to occasions no matter how we feel if we know how to get ourselves to that state. How many times in a competition have you felt like crap, or you're exhausted, or you really are in pain? I'm not saying we should push through pain irresponsibly, but if we can figure out how to use our grandparents' tool that gets them so up and alive for when we're coming in to visit, there's certainly something there that we can use for our performance. We know that how we think directly affects us physically, and conversely, how we feel directly affects how we think. But there's a lot to this that can be talked about on tools that can help us manage our pain or our fatigue and improve our performance regardless of how we feel. The bottom line is this. When we feel joy and excitement or positive anticipation, which means we're anticipating maybe vacation or whatever it might be, something exciting to us, our brain releases feel-good chemicals, right? Neurochemicals like dopamine and endorphins, serotonin, things like that act as natural painkillers. They're mood enhancers, they're fatigue reducers, and they make us feel better. How can we dive into these things when we're out there on the pitch or the field or the court or in the boardroom or wherever we are, and we're like, oh my gosh, I can't go on? Or even worse, on a marathon course, something of that nature. Dr. Laurie Santos, who does the Happiness Lab, and if you haven't listened to that podcast, you're missing out. She talks about positive anticipation a lot and saying that the chemicals that are sent to our brain, the things that make us feel so good about an anticipated vacation or event, are sometimes make us feel better than the actual event does. So how can we use this? If I can think about something and I can change the chemicals in my brain when I'm not there, then I certainly would think I could do that when I'm not there, when I'm performing. Thinking about some sort of outcome, of course, that we don't control, but thinking about something that makes me feel better. This is what we're looking for. Now, I won't dive too deep into this, but in the mid-1960s, psychologists Melzack and Wall introduced what they called the gate control theory of pain. And what this theory suggests is that the brain can override pain signals when focused on something else other than the pain, such as something emotionally significant. So, this is what they say, right? There's a gate that runs through our body when we're working on pain. They propose that pain exists due to a complex interaction between different neurons in the brainstem and the spinal cord, and there's a gate that this pain passes through, which can be opened and closed by various factors. When the gate is open, signals travel from the nerve fibers to the spinal cord, and they do their thing to trigger pain. Now, so this is sort of a layman's terms of this. I mean, I am a softball coach, let's keep that in mind, right? But when the gate is closed, signals are blocked from reaching the brain, and no pain or less pain is triggered. So the gate can be influenced by physical and psychological factors. Ding, ding, ding. For example, a light massage can change the way we feel pain. And we know that. Massage is very helpful for pain, right? That can help activate the gate control mechanism that helps close it, right? And a positive mood, a distraction, deep breathing can also partially close this gate. But on the flip side of that, strong emotions like anxiety or fear or expecting the worst to happen can open the gate. And we know what happens when a gate opens. Floods come through them often. So our thoughts affect our actions, they affect how we feel, they affect how we act, and they affect our pain. So if we're overwhelmed, we've got anxious thoughts, negative emotions, worries of past poor performances, all of these things can aid in opening up that gate to make us feel even worse. It increases our pain and feelings of discomfort. So here's another plug for the positive emotion is one of the biggest predictors of peak performance. When we have productive feedback, when we get productive feedback, when we get negative feedback, pain, right? Our brain feels emotional and physical pain very similarly. So pain, positive feedback or productive feedback, good, right? When we're having good memories about a painful experience, because every painful experience has something that you can find a silver lining in, right? But when we're experiencing something of joy or an excitement, the gate closes. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. So let's work on closing the gate. So to close the gate, we're going to throw in, again, the 4 P's of peak performance. And we haven't talked about these for a while, but we're talking about being present. We're talking about productive thinking or being productive in general. We're talking about our posture and our process. We'll start with present. And one way that we can start to close the gate is to think of ways to distract ourselves or our athletes or whoever we're working with to get them focused on something else. Now you think that's not really being present, but maybe the distraction or the refocusing is actually pulling them back to the present. We're distracting them away from the pain or the fatigue, giving them something to think about, giving them something to report upon, giving them someone to help, giving them something to think about that puts them in the moment and away from thinking about the misery that they're feeling. One of the best ways to combat fatigue in itself is to remain in the present moment. The more we travel and fly ahead, the more exhausted we get. The more we pull that anchor of the past with us, if we get anchored in the past, the more exhausted we get. Imagine playing with an anchor around your ankle. Impossible. So we want to try to stay in the present as often as possible, distracting ourselves back to it. Sounds counterintuitive, but it makes sense if you think about it. Let's move on to productive thinking. Here's a good way to be more productive in our thinking. When something arises, we say, is this a threat or a challenge? Changing the way that we feel threat into something that we say is a challenge is going to change the way we feel and help close the gate. Crum et al. In Rethinking Stress, the Role of Mindsets in Determining Stress Response said this: reframing stress as a challenge rather than a threat alters the body's physiological response, reducing harmful cortisol levels and increasing energy. Threat, challenge. Challenge, feel better. Threat, feel worse. Gate closed. Gate closed over here with the challenge. Gate open over here with the threat. Now we get on to the next P of posture. Now you may not think that having eye contact or keeping eye contact is really a posture thing, but think about it. When you're having eye contact with someone, where are they? They're up. They're also out. Right? When we're having eye contact with someone, our posture changes because our eyes are up. And the difference there too is that we're outside of our own brain. Right? When you make direct eye contact, your brain reduces stress response, creating a more relaxed and present physical state. Eye contact. And let's not forget about the smile. It can just be a half smile, but we talk about the smile all the time, that smiling, even just halfway, when you don't feel like it, even when you don't feel like it, can trick your brain into releasing dopamine, the molecule of more. Serotonin, the happy chemicals. We can shift our mood and energize our physical state just with this. I don't mean a Duquesne smile. You don't have to go that far. Just try it. Try it right now. You feel better. I'm telling you, you feel better, right? You do. Finally, let's go to process. According to Cummings and Ramsey in an article in 2009, athletes who use visualization techniques to mentally rehearse their performance experience improved focus, reduced anxiety, shutting the gate, and even increased muscle activation. We can close the gate by being there before we get there. Absolutely fascinating. Mental rehearsal takes very little time, and you can do it at any time. And our body is not good at distinguishing between things that we imagine and things that we actually do. So if we're thinking about something that we're doing that we feel really good about, we're flooding our body with those neurochemicals. What do the neurochemicals do? They shut the darn gate. Good stuff. I don't think my papa knew any of this science. I don't think he cared about it. He was a finance guy. But the bottom line is that somehow he was using his body, his mind together, that constant communication that they have, to get himself where he needed to be to feel good for the things that mattered to him. And we can use these same techniques to improve our performance. What can you do this week to help those that you lead shut the gate more often so that they can be at their best and feel better physically? Push through the fatigue, push through the pain. And again, responsibly. But if we can figure out how to use these neurochemicals and to use our being present, being productive, thinking about our posture, our eye contact, our smile, using these things to our advantage, and then following the process of being there before we get there, shutting the gate before we even get there, flooding ourselves with these great chemicals that are already in us, natural painkillers, we're going to be better. I'd love to know what you think about this. Shoot me an email, juliej@ssbperformance.com, and I would love to talk to your team. Reach out. Let's get something set. Have a great week.